Yo, 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 what's going on, my fantastic family and friends? It is your boy, Mr. Dominique, aka the Scorpio King. I'm back at you with another episode from right up top, Dom's World. You got your world and I got mine. And this morning, I'm gonna get right into chopping it up. You saw the thumbnail. It's the 80s, baby. We talking about the 80s. We talking about the 80s. So take this walk with me. Let's take this stroll down memory lane. And I just want to have a little fun with the content today. So that's why this is extra content, bonus content. I'm dropping it. I've already dropped content earlier today, but I want to drop this too because it's bonus content, like I said. All right, so just take this stroll down memory lane with me. Just kick back, sit back, loosen up. Let's have a little fun with this video and remember the good old days. All right, so listen, when I think of the 80s, okay, I was born, I ain't afraid to tell you, I was born in 77, 1977. I was born in 77. By the time the 80s came around, I was 3 years old. Okay, so I was born, I'm an 80s baby. I went to elementary school and middle school in the 80s. All right, by the time I was in high school, the 90s was coming in. All right, so the 80s, I'm an 80s baby, raised in the 80s, but the 90s made me. Okay, so I will do a video about the 90s as well too, because I'm in touch with the 90s just as much as I am with the 80s. But without further ado, let's take this stroll down memory lane. When I think of the 80s, I think of nothing but fun. Okay, remember, today's content is just for fun. We're not going to talk about none of the hard times of the 80s. We're only talking about the good times. I think about the fun. I think about the neon colors. I think about the big hair. I think about all the denim that was being worn, all the blue jean denim. I think about all the baggy clothes that we thought was so cool to wear. Chris Cross to make it jump. Baggy clothes. They even wore the clothes backwards. I never did that, but the baggy clothes I did. I remember the movies from the 80s, the cartoons from the 80s, sports in the 80s, and cable TV starting off in the 80s, okay? So, who remembers Saturday morning cartoons? Who remembers waking up on a Saturday morning, going down into the kitchen, getting at the table, getting that box of cereal, that bowl, pouring that milk in there, putting that box in front of you, eating that cereal and reading that box, no matter what it was. And we had the sweetest, most sugariest cereal that there ever was in the 80s. That was the sweetest. Every cereal was sweet. Nothing was healthy for you back then. All right, it was no sugar-free, nothing. Everything had sugar all in it. And we would put that box in front of us and read that box. That box was full of nothing but joy and entertainment, because that's the way the cereal box was made. And let's not forget reaching into the cereal box to get the surprise that was in there. And back in those days, there were some pretty good surprises in the cereal box. But after you got done with that cereal, you headed to the TV. Saturday morning cartoons was life. That was life, man. You from the 80s, if you understand, sitting in front of the TV on Saturday morning and watching cartoons. Just to name a few: Voltron, Thundercats, Transformers, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Berenstain Bears, the Muppet Babies. Come on now, stop playing with me. It was me, my little sister, and my little brother. It was three of us, so we shared the TV. So, of course, every now and then we had to deal with a little bit of Rainbow Bright, Care Bears, and My Little Pony. All right? Saturday morning cartoons was life in the 80s. Let's talk about the toy stores and toys. Just a few, all right? Just a few, family. Who remembers Toys R Us? Who remembers Toys R Us? Who remembers Children's Palace? All right? Children's Palace and KB Toy Stores. All right? These were toy stores that was, this was, you know how ladies like to go into the store and window shop and just shop and look at stuff and pick it up and say, oh, this looks nice. That's what a toy store was for a kid in the 80s. We can go into a toy store and just look around and touch stuff, play with it, envision getting it one day. Tell your mom and dad this is what you want for your birthday or for Christmas or whatever it might have been. Toy stores were life in the 80s. All right. Some of the most popular toys in the 80s was the Rubik's Cube. Remember the Rubik's Cube? That's still a big deal now. All right. What about the girls in their easy bake ovens? What about Voltron? Remember that one Christmas, boys, where we had to have a Voltron during the 80s? What about He-Man and the Masters of the Universe? Castle Grayskull? Need I say more? Remember Teddy Ruxpin. Remember everybody had to have Teddy Ruxpin? That was a huge deal back in the 80s. The talking teddy bear that you put the cassette tape in his back and he would read the book to you and talk to you. That was huge in the 80s, man. Girls, Cabbage Patch Dolls. Cabbage Patch Dolls. I remember the year my sister had to have a Cabbage Patch doll just like we had to have a Voltron. That was a big deal. Remember collecting Garbage Pail Kid stickers? I was a serious collector of Garbage Pail Kid stickers. We traded them things at school. That was a huge deal. If I remember correctly, fourth grade in the 80s, trading Garbage Pail Kid stickers at lunch with your friends. Like you see these little kids trading Pokemon cards now. That was our Pokemon. All right. A personal favorite of mine were key cars. We all love the Hot Wheels, you know, right? But I remember back then you could take a key and you would turn a key and it would make the car take off. Key cars, a personal favorite. And then Transformers and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle toys. Man, me and my brother had to have them. Wrestling men, WWE, well back then it was WWF, wrestling toy men, the wrestling ring and the cage and all that. Yeah, life in the 80s, okay? Let's talk about TV and games. I'm going to speak on one game and I'm going to keep it moving. In the 80s, it was the Nintendo. Okay? In the 80s, it was the Nintendo. Now, I'm not skipping past the Atari, but I believe the Atari was more of a late 70s thing. So if I'm speaking on 80s, I'm going to say the Nintendo. I remember the Atari, but nothing was like the Nintendo, man. That was groundbreaking. And that, in the 80s, every boy had to have a Nintendo. Listen to me. Who remembers? Fellas, speak up in the comments. I remember when we was in school, and you sat at the lunch table, you couldn't even talk if you didn't have a Nintendo, because that's all we was talking about. Was talking about the Nintendo and trading games. That was the life. Take that cartridge, stick it in there, everything worked just fine. Mario Brothers was everybody's favorite game. I can go on and on about games for the Nintendo, but I'm just saying the Nintendo, you think of the 80s, you got to think of the Nintendo. All right? Board games like Monopoly, Hungry Hungry Hippos, Operation, to name a few. Board games were huge back then, too. Cable TV had just became popular. All right? And for us in the 80s, cable TV for us was simply used for cartoons and for music videos. MTV, the jukebox. Need I say more? That's the 80s, baby. Okay? Check this out, family. Let's talk about music for a second here, okay? Music in the 80s. Hip-hop became very popular. It wasn't hardcore rap yet. It was just hip-hop. It was just party music. It was fun music. You could sing along to it. You could rap to it. You could dance to it. It was hip-hop. That's what it was back then. All right? LL Cool J, MC Lyte, Run DMC. They just made fun music. It was just hip-hop music back then. And you played your hip-hop music on your boombox that you carried around. You would carry your boombox around in the neighborhood and play your music out loud. That was the thing to do in the 80s. You had to have the boombox, and you better had damn sure kept you some big D-sized batteries for when your power went out. You need those batteries. You and your friends would go in on batteries and buy them together, keep the party going. Walk around the neighborhood and playing music on your boombox. In the 80s, baby. You remember that? That's 80s. In the 80s, Michael Jackson was the most popular entertainer. The Thriller album changed my life. If you've been watching my content, if you know me, you know I'm a dance choreographer. I have my own dance program, and I grew up dancing, as a young person myself. And I never would have fell into the world of dance if it wasn't for Michael Jackson. And that Thriller album, that changed my life. And that Thriller video, we had that in the VCR. It stayed in the VCR. So that all I had to do was go up there and hit play and watch that video. I recorded it off MTV videos one time and just kept it there. And that tape would stay there. If you wanted to watch something, you had to take that Thriller tape out. And everybody knew not to lose my Thriller tape. I would watch that video every single day. I knew the moves. I knew the dialogue. Michael Jackson was everything to me. Michael Jackson was the 80s. Okay? Beat It, I'm Bad. Need I say more? A Thriller jacket, the glove, the moonwalk. Come on, family. It's Michael Jackson, baby. That's the 80s. Okay? Also, back then, horror movies. The birth of horror movies. That was the start of it all. I love horror movies now. I love horror TV series. And it all started in the 80s as a young kid growing up watching Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees, Freddy Krueger, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and towards the end, Chucky. All right? Horror movies were big in my household. I don't know about yours, but in my family, we all watched horror movies and we laughed and had fun, and nobody worshiped the devil. All right? It was TV, it's entertainment. We understood that then, we understand that now. Remember Channel 9? Okay, I don't know what area, it was for you, but back then, you had the big box TV with the rabbit ears on it, the antennas to adjust to get a good signal. And remember on the TV, you had Channel 2, Channel 4, Channel 11, and Channel 30. And on some TVs, Channel 30 was a letter U. And then you had Channel 9. And on Channel 9 is where you watched Sesame Street, Reading Rainbow, Captain Kangaroo, The Letter People, Mr. Rogers. They taught us everything. How these little kids get on a tablet now and watch Cocomelon and Dora the Explorer and Diego. Back then, Channel 9, we had Sesame Street and Mr. Rogers. Channel 9 TV taught us everything. How to read, how to count, how to do our ABCs. Mr. Rogers was the man. Okay? Do you remember McDonald's in the 80s? Do you remember Ronald McDonald? The Hamburglar, the other characters that were associated with McDonald's. McDonald's used to have characters that were associated with them. Remember, the Big Mac was a Big Mac. The Quarter Pounder was really a Quarter Pounder. Who remembers the Whopper when it was really a Whopper? Seriously, family, do your research. Look up these burgers and the difference between them now and in the 80s. A huge difference. A huge difference. I'm so serious. I wouldn't be speaking on it if it wasn't. Remember, Domino's had to deliver your pizza in 20 minutes or it was free? That was a thing. Domino's had to deliver your pizza in 20 minutes or it was free. That was a thing in the 80s, man. That was a thing. Remember the Where's the Beef lady from Wendy's? Where's the beef? Oh, hilarious. Classic. That's 80s, man. That's when Wendy's is still pretty good now. But back then, man, our whole food was just on a different level, y'all. It really was. In closing, family, let's talk. Let me close this out. I appreciate you all taking this walk down memory lane with me. And if I'm missing a few things, tell me about some of your favorite things from the 80s in the comments. Throw them in the comments, and because I can't get it all in there. The 80s was a decade of awesomeness, of plenty of fun. So I only do videos. I try to keep them under 15 minutes, so I'm sure I might miss a few things. So if I miss something, you got something, throw it in the comments for me and let me know, all right? But let's talk about the 80s, all right? Let's remember the 80s. What was fun for you in the 80s? Share it with me in the comments. I'm gonna close it out with this, family. Who remembers when Chuck E. Cheese used to be showbiz? All right, before there was a Chuck E. Cheese, it was showbiz. And no matter what, everybody, boy or girl, man or woman, you were scared of that goddamn gorilla at showbiz. And when showbiz first turned into Chuck E. Cheese, you were scared of the gorilla then. All right? Chuck E. Cheese is a lot more friendlier. But back then, man, them little puppet things on that stage was kind of scary. Showbiz Pizza was the name. Who remembers when Rallies was Checkers? Before it was Rallies, it was Checkers. Who remembers stores like Grandpa Pigeons, Ventures? Who remembers in the 80s when we had to have the Trapper Keeper? You couldn't go to school without a Trapper Keeper. Who remembers the Swatch Watch? Starter jackets and starter coats might have been more 90s than 80s, but starter jackets and starter coats, the 80s, Hulk Hogan and Hulkamania. Train, say your prayers, eat your vitamins. Whether you watch wrestling or not, everybody knew who Hulk Hogan was. All right? Remember Eddie Murphy, Tom Cruise, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, Sharon Stone, Demi Moore, just to name a few of your favorite actors from the 80s that made movies just awesome. Last thing I want to mention is back in the 80s, kids stayed outside and played. We stayed outside and played from sun up to sundown, and we only came in to get something to drink and something to eat, and when our parents made us come in because it was time to go to bed. The 80s, a good old time. Remember that. If you like what you hear, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for all notifications, like and share these videos. I am your boy, Mr. Dominique, aka the Scorpio King, saying peace and one love. And I appreciate you taking this walk down memory lane with me and remembering the 80s. I gave you some of my favorite memories of the 80s. What you got? Share yours with me in the comments. Keep your vibrations up here at all times. Have a great day, family. Your boy is out.